Hello, this is Tones Ballones giving a commentary video for my Splatoon 2 submission at Games Done Quick. So, as you probably already know, Splatoon 2 is the direct sequel of Splatoon 1, boasting a whole bunch of new online features for those of you who liked Splatoon 1 on the Wii U. However, I'm not going to be dwelling on the online differences and what they added and stuff like that. We're going to focus solely on the single player, which is what I'll be speedrunning today. This was an offline PB of 1 hour, 36 minutes, and 49 seconds. So unfortunately, I couldn't get a live commentary as per my Twitch channel, but I can do a nice little narration via Microsoft Windows Movie Maker, or whatever this is called. It's not a very good program. Anyway, as you see, the game starts in the exact same way as Splatoon 1 did, with the tutorial. That is because the tutorial is, of course, the first thing that we see in game after we delete the file and start from a fresh one. However, that's where the similarities between Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2 end. After you get into the single player, it is a completely new experience with a different hub world, different levels. Every single level is brand new. New bosses, including the final boss's mechanics. There's a new hub world, and new mechanics of the hub world, mostly of which will not include a world skip, unfortunately. But that does mean we are required to do every single level, so, you know, I guess no cheating involved. And another really huge change is new weapons. We actually don't use the hero shot the entire game like we did in Splatoon 1. We get up to 9 weapons to play through that is given to us in each level. So we get a ton of more variety in how we move and how we play through each level depending on what weapon we get. And the weapon changes basically every level, so we have that to look forward to. I think a lot of people would like to see the different weapons be used as fast as possible. So, of course, once the intro cutscene is over with, we enter the overworld, to which Marie is standing there and will give us a short briefing on what we need to do. Basically, stop the Octarians, find Callie, blah, 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 blah. We all get the idea. This is a speedrun. We don't care about the lore. So here's the first level we enter in World 1. There are 3 total levels in World 1 and 6 total levels in every other world. However, each of the 3 levels, including the boss fight afterwards in World 1, will be using the hero shot. And the hero shot is not exactly what it was in Splatoon 1. Now, in Splatoon 1, the hero shot was a replica of the splatter shot, which is a very common shooter weapon, and it has a fast fire rate, has decent accuracy, decent range. It's a very average weapon. However, in this game, they basically nerfed it for the single player's level 1 version. The fire rate is about half of what it was in Splatoon 1. The accuracy is a lot worse. It has about the same range and the same damage, so that's good, but the damage per second is a lot less since it has really bad fire rate. So that's one of the changes that I don't really enjoy in the game, because the slow fire rate does make the movement feel really clunky for pretty much every level that we have to use the hero shot. And unfortunately, we can't upgrade the hero shot until the end of the game because it costs a lot of resources, which I'll be talking about later. But luckily, we don't have to use the hero shot in every level. It's not the fastest or the required weapon to use. So we just kind of make do with what we can until we can use a better weapon for whatever other level that they give it to us. Now the second level we enter is a cycle-based level. This level is kind of out there. It doesn't really matter what order you do the levels in World 1. They're all pretty much equidistant from one another. We just prefer to stop at what is known as level 1 because that's the one that's closest to the boss fight. So I guess, you know, routing wise it makes sense. So as I said before, this is a cycle-based level. As you see off to the right, you'll see little purple churro-looking things, little purple tubes, little spinny tubes, tubes. You get one of those. Those are on a global cycle throughout the level, from the start of the level. So depending on how slow or how fast you go, a lot of the times it won't matter. Specifically, when you get to this exact point, you have to wait for those purple churros to clear away so you can jump through them. So even if I went faster there, I would have been stopped. So that's why runners will prefer to go a little bit slower in this level, specifically to grab more of these orbs. And the little orbs, the eggs, I think they're called power eggs, they will allow us to unlock weapons, including the upgraded hero shot. So we need to collect a lot of those so we can get the better weapons sooner. The cycle at the end here is about a 2-second cycle. So that cycle, depending on how fast you go, will be a 121, a 123, or a 125. Most of the time I'll get a 123, but it depends. Also, I should mention that the game has in-game timer. So as you can see at the end of the level, I was saying how it gets a 123. Well, the 123 is based on the in-game timer. It will time how long it took you from the start of the level when you gain movement to when you grab the zapfish. So that's a really, really important addition to the game, which makes it a lot easier and a lot more fun to practice. So this level is basically a test of how patient you are with the level 1 hero shot. There's a lot of enemy ink scattered around. There's a lot of enemies you have to kill. There's a ton of things that you just have to look out for movement-wise that really shouldn't be an issue if we had a better hero shot, but considering the hero shot is such a slow fire rate in this game, it makes it a little bit more difficult to move fast. So we just have to take any opportunity we can get. Another addition of this game, which I really don't like, which I sarcastically call the fun box, is the box I just destroyed there. They added these really hard sealed crates that will sometimes carry necessary items or necessary pathways. And whenever you're forced to destroy them, you basically just have to sit there and wait for you to shoot the entire thing, which is really boring, but it's the fun box, so, you know, you gotta make the most of it. At that part there, you have to throw a splat bomb, which will distract the enemy. Now, that's a little bit of a technique used in Splatoon 1 a lot. However, they changed how enemies work in this game. Enemies aren't that keen to getting distracted. They're definitely a lot smarter than they were in Splatoon 1. So you have to really aim your splat bombs in order to get them to see it. You know, they have to be really close. You have to be not shooting because they'll target you over the splat bomb. It's a lot harder than it was in Splatoon 1. There's a lot more changes to the enemies that I'll get to when when we come to those. But basically, that's all of level 1. We'll be entering the boss now, and there's not really much to talk about the boss, so I'll just keep talking until we enter there. There's a cool cutscene skip that I'll be doing in each of the single boss fights, except for the final one, because that's an unskippable cutscene. Basically, the cutscene will trigger as soon as you land. So by landing and then restarting the level, we can simply go straight back into it, and we can skip the cutscene when it starts. And the first cutscene that we skip is a really long cutscene. It's about 35 seconds. So by restarting, we save from anywhere from 15 to 20 seconds, depending on how long the intro cutscene was. And then this boss is probably the wackiest boss I've ever seen in a Nintendo game ever. It's literally an octagonal oven that shoots toast at you. So I don't really know what they're getting at design-wise. I love this boss design-wise, but it's really strange, and you just basically do the same thing every time. You wait for him to toast you, and then you climb to the top and you hit the tentacle. So enjoy that, and then I'll catch up again in World 2. Okay, so what you see here is one of the major changes of the hub world in Splatoon 2. Instead of having every single world be in one loaded area, separated by a large distance, they instead have it separated by load screens. So it makes it pretty much impossible to skip a world at this point, because in order to skip a world, you have to trick the game into loading you into the load screen, which is a lot harder than simply just jumping over to World 5 like we could in Splatoon 1. Now, World 2 is where we get a little bit interesting with the weapon choices. It'll introduce a lot of new weapons, namely the roller, the charger, and the dualies. This level is the first level where we are given a new weapon. This is the hero roller, which the mechanics are different than the roller than how the roller worked in Splatoon 1. Namely, the flicks are about the same speed. However, if you do a flick while in the air, you will do a vertical flick, which will go farther in a straight line and deal more damage in that straight line. So that changes up the movement a lot, because instead of having to flick a lot and then make a lot of ink or depend on sub weapons, we can simply jump in the air, make a vertical line, and then we have that that little path to go through, which makes the movement a lot better, and it's a nice change to the roller. But that's pretty much it as far as this level goes. Now this is where the routing will get a little bit screwy. So we're going to be using this technique a lot. It involves just simply throwing sub-weapons over to another level and unlocking them, because once a level is unlocked, we can super jump to it. So it's a lot faster to simply super jump to a level than it is to get there naturally. And this level I just entered is a really simple level. It uses the hero shot again that you've already seen, but this time it adds these little fruit roll-up looking things. They react to both your ink and enemy ink. If it's hit by your ink, it'll go in the positive direction and the direction you want it. If it gets hit by enemy ink, however, it'll go in the wrong direction pretty much instantaneously. So you have to look out. And you have to look out for and make sure to kill any enemies that will possibly get in the way of the fruit roll-up looking thing, because if they shoot it, then you'll get shot off and lose your footing or lose momentum and lose time. So this is a very interesting level. I personally enjoy this level a lot more than all other levels in World 2. It's because the dualies are introduced, which is a very interesting weapon where you use two of them. As you can see, there's even two crosshairs. And something unique about this weapon is if you are shooting and press the jump button while you're holding a direction, you'll do a dodge roll in that direction. And what's interesting about the dodge roll is they decided to control it, I guess, by making sure that you couldn't get any extra distance with the dodge roll. And that means that if you are in midair, you kind of go straight downwards. So we use this dodge roll a lot, pretty much anytime we're in the air, to land on the ground faster and get into these ink rails faster. Ink rails are also a lot different in this game than they were in Splatoon 1. In Splatoon 1, they were basically just ink trails that you could freely go forward and backwards in, as long as you were in squid form. In this game, the ink rails are basically grind rails, like they were in Sonic or something, where you can be in squid form if you want, you can be in kid form, shooting things, and they're both the same speed, so you don't have to worry about losing any time from like shooting things. So this is where we get a lot of our power eggs, by taking advantage of these balloons, of course, along the way. A cool little speed tech you can do on the grind rails is that anytime the rail is heading upwards or in a curved manner, you can just kind of jump off the rail and dive back into it and go a little bit faster. Only a little bit, though. Only a little bit. Alright, this is an Octoling level, and boy do I hate these Octoling levels. They are a huge change in how they work in this game versus in Splatoon 1. In this game, each of the Octoling levels has 8 mini Zapfish, which you have to collect across the entire map, rather than simply getting to one Zapfish at the end of the map. And what that means is these Octolings are constantly shooting at you, and you cannot get away from them, and they're a lot more accurate, and they will cut you off and insta-kill you and do a lot of things that are very not nice to the speedrun. So, you know, I have practiced this level a lot. I can probably get through without dying pretty much 99% of the time, but it's very dependent on the route that you take, how much you conserve your ink, and whether or not you get backup armor, which I absolutely get backup armor pretty much every time because it's a lot better than dying. This is another really fun and interesting level, just because Nintendo of Japan actually tweeted out a video of the developer of the level actually doing a speedrun of this level. And not only did he do the speedrun of the level, but it actually beat the IL time for this level, even though we've been working on this level for like weeks at the time. So that was a huge shock to us that Nintendo would establish, you know, their dominance like that into doing this level. But as to the mechanics of the level, basically you have the Hero Charger, which is a sniper rifle, which works by charging up ink, which the longer you charge, the more damage it does, and the longer it'll shoot. And you also have these grapple links, the grapple hooks things. If you shoot them with any kind of weapon, or if you throw a sub weapon at them, they will trigger and you will instantly teleport to them. So a lot of this level is finding creative and unique ways of using these grapple links, including this one. So this is a sub weapon called the Stingray, which has infinite range, and we can use it to instantly teleport across the map onto there. Not only that, but also hit the fan that's on that platform right where the Zapfish is, which will teleport the platform right where we need to go, and that skips like 20 something seconds. Here's a quick little route thing. We want to unlock what are known as curling bombs as fast as possible. Usually we get it after or before the sniper level, and they are very important for movement throughout the rest of the run. Including in this level, they are very, very important at manipulating the enemies. Curling bombs work in a similar way that they do Seekers were in Splatoon 1. Seekers just moved in a straight line and dealt damage to the first thing that they hit. Curling bombs are a lot faster, and they also bounce off walls. So I feel like curling bombs are just a simple upgrade to Seekers, and a very welcome change to our arsenal, considering especially levels where we have to use the hero shot, considering the hero shot is pretty lackluster as far as movement goes. Now, a little bit on this level. This is known as the squeegee level, and those of us who ran Splatoon 1 know how annoying squeegees can be. You know, they're little tiny robot things on the ground, right? They weren't that bad, but now they got a step above worse. They are unbearable to deal with. They are these huge things that not only are very hard to manipulate, but you are required by law to use them in the speedrun in some form, because it is otherwise impossible to progress through the level unless you ride them. So what we have to do is stand on top of them, and luckily they're not completely random. They are manipulatable in their AI, whereas they're attracted to sound. So if you were to shoot on the floor, or if you throw a sub weapon which makes sound, or if an enemy throws a weapon that makes sounds, they will instantly be attracted to that weapon that is making sound. So this is why curling bombs are very effective here, is because curling bombs simply move in a straight line and they make sound. So the squeegee is a lot more likely to follow the path of the curling bomb than they are to follow the path of the splat bomb. So it saves a lot of time here and a lot of consistency issues we used to have in this level, where the squeegee simply wouldn't listen to us. But hopefully that doesn't happen when we're using curling bombs. Here's the second world boss. We will be doing the same cutscene skip we did in this boss that we did in the first boss. Obviously, as I said, we will be doing this in every single boss. This boss is also very straightforward. He's a roller samurai guy, and you have to kill him with a roller. So there's really nothing to it. You just have to match him blow for blow and deal a lot of damage to him. The first cycle here is probably the only one I'll talk about, because it's the one that is hardest to get consistent. So sometimes he'll do this lawnmower attack that you see now, but if he does it on the second cycle, like right after he jumps the first time, then you can stun lock him into dealing all that damage. But if you don't, then you lose about 6 seconds trying to chase him down. The second and third phase are really simple. It's just a matter of hitting him and making him not jump away, which is really, really easy. So I'm not really going to talk much about that. All right, here is the sprinty guy level. Boy, was this level a pain when we did it for the first time. I thought that this level right here would be the worst level in the game by far, but unfortunately, it got a little bit better as we learned new setups for these guys. Basically, how these guys work, they will run as fast as they can away from you to make sure that you don't kill them. But the trick is that you have to kill them. So we have to just basically chase these guys around, and if we mess up any of these little quick kills, then they just take us for a ride, man. They're gonna take us for a ride. It's one of those. It's not fun. And like I said, before we found the setups for these guys, it was a nightmare to do this because you would just be chasing around like a chicken with your head cut off. It was not that great, but I'll let the setups speak for themselves for now, and then catch on the next level. So here's the first instance of the hero Splatling. Now this weapon is very similar to the charger, where you have to charge it up before you can fire, and charging it up longer makes it deal more damage as well as increase the range of the weapon. So a lot of this level is making sure to utilize the most that you can for curling bombs, as well as knowing what's the optimal time to charge your weapon for before like it becomes too long, you know. But other than that, there's not really much to say about this level. You know, it is a lot of confusing movement because it just seems like we're going slow, and it feels like we're going slow. That's kind of why I don't really like the Splatling levels too much. It's really hard to optimize the movement on the Splatling because it just doesn't have that great of movement compared to other weapons like the dualies or the charger. Oh boy, another Octoling level. So, as I said before, I do not like the Octoling levels, and this Octoling level is worse than any other Octoling level, in my opinion. Mostly because every single Octoling in this level has a roller, and the rollers are an insta-kill weapon. So if you get hit by any of the Octolings ever, including when they're super jumping in, and trust me, they will hit you when they're super jumping, it's very broken, then you will lose your armor stack and possibly die. Oh, that's one thing I never really mentioned before, if it's important to you at all. But they did change how armor works in the single player. It's actually very interesting. It works a little bit like Halo armor did. Basically, you have about 100 hit points, and after you break 100 hit points, you will break your armor. And when you break your armor, you'll get invulnerability frames, and you'll also move incredibly slowly. And you're about one hit from death at all times. So it's very important that you don't lose your armor at any point. It's a little bit better than the substitute of dying, I guess. I guess it's a little better than dying because there's a chance you don't die from it, but it's a very bad position. You do not want to be in that position at all. So picking up armor is still very important, throughout the level to make sure you don't die. Now, the level I entered right now is another level that's very frustrating, but it seems a lot more fun than it is, because you get these little bouncy pads, and the bouncy pads are really fun. You just bounce on them, you go bounce, 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 and it's all fun. But unfortunately, you don't have a lot of control over your Inkling when you're on those bouncy pads. You have two options, basically. If you go onto a bouncy pad after you've been in your own ink, then you get a little bit of a speed boost. However, if you lose that speed, then you go a lot slower. So you want to maximize the amount of time that you have that speed boost. Otherwise, you will end up being vulnerable to a lot of the enemies here. For example, this one, who will double tap you, and there's not really much you can do about that if you're in the wrong position. So as I said before, it's a position you don't want to be in if you lose your armor. In fact, I was very, very close to dying there, and I'm glad I didn't, because it's very possible that I would die there. This level here will introduce the hero Slosher. Now, the Slosher is better known as the bucket of the weapons. It's a really unique weapon. I was like really shocked when they added it in Splatoon 1. It looks exactly how it plays. You just slosh paint onto the enemies. It's actually surprisingly good for movement. There's a little bit of I guess end lag, I can say, after shooting after like launching the paint from the bucket. So you don't want to use it too much unnecessarily. However, it does have really decent range. It has really decent paint coverage, as well as a straight line to swim through anytime you shoot it. It also does a lot of damage and pierces through enemies and above enemies. So that's really welcome when it comes to designing how you're going to play around the enemies. They also have in this level this new enemy that's only in this level, I think, called Octo Seekers, I think. They are these giant helicopter things which will stomp on the ground and hit you. We only have to use them once in the level, and they're not really a threat otherwise, and that point is right here. This is a cycle-based thing, so you have to play this part perfectly, or else you'll miss an entire cycle of this guy going around in the circle. So you have to jump up here very fast, jump onto him, splash down, jump off of him, and make sure not to hit any of his propellers, because if you hit the propellers, then you'll get knocked off and lose your speed, and then probably not make the jump. So that's one of the more frustrating things to mess up in a run, because it does lose a lot of time. I think it's about 14 seconds that you'll lose from that. So hopefully that goes well for me in the future. Okay, most of this level has been pretty tame, but I feel like I should talk about this part. They force you to kill 2 octolings here, and you have to do a very precise setup. You throw a splat bomb onto that one, and then shoot that guy. If you mess up that splat bomb throw, or you miss the shot, it becomes very, very, very difficult to hit those octolings again to kill them, because they jump around, they hide, you run out of ink. It's a very rough situation to be in, so I really, really want to make sure that I hit that splat bomb, otherwise you can lose anywhere from 3 to 25 seconds based on how unfriendly the octolings are. So this boss here is Octostomp. This is literally the same boss from Splatoon 1. The same body design, that is. There's absolutely nothing similar to this boss fight mechanics-wise than there was in Splatoon 1. Especially in the second and third phase, when he gets this brand new coat, he will have a whole bunch of new attacks, and you have to target this buckle on his face to get him into a charging stance, and then you have to chase him down after the charge and get on top of him. Here's a cycle-based level featuring the slosher. Not really much to say here. Just want to make sure that you make the cycle. If you were to miss the cycle at the end, it's about a 6-second time loss. It's not that bad, but you pretty much have to play everything perfectly to get that fastest cycle. So. This is another cycle-based level, so I guess I don't really talk about it much. But the cycle we're trying to make is right in the middle, so it's not that costly if you don't make it, and it's not as hard to make because you don't have to play the entire level. But that's not the important part. The mechanics of this level, it actually introduces the new enemies to the octo bowling ball things. They're very strange. They will basically insta-kill your armor, but that's not the reason they're dangerous. The reason they're dangerous is because if you touch them, they force you away from them with this insane, like, velocity hitbox of some sort, and it'll just throw you off the map and you'll die that way, even if you had armor stacks. So it's a very dangerous level to tread in, and it's sometimes it's hard to avoid the bowling balls in certain places. Here's yet another charger level. This is a really fun charger level as well as a pretty slow one. There's two auto scrollers in this level, which is surprising considering there's basically zero other auto scrollers in the entire game. So I guess they just took all of their auto scroller needs and just crammed them into one level. But other than that, it's a pretty just solid level all around. As you can see, this is the hero Brella. This is a very, very unique weapon. It's almost like a shotgun, really. It's like a shotgun weapon. It shoots a lot of pellets that are, randomized by trajectory. And they, like, basically a direct hit does about 50 damage. So it's a two-shot weapon most of the time. But it also has this very unique ability, which we barely use, which is it's a umbrella shield, which if you hold the R button after you shoot, you'll deploy an umbrella shield, which will block all enemy attacks, as well as shoot out in a straight line in front of you after a short delay of about 3 seconds. So unfortunately, we never use it in a speedrun because we have curling bombs, so it's not really important for movement, but it does get a lot of use online for blocking shots and escape routes. Here is the first and only level that we received the blaster weapon, and it's also the longest level in the game. This is called the Experimentorium. It is a search and retrieval level. Basically, we have to go to 3 different zones and grab the keys, and then the keys will let us get to the final zone, which has the Zapfish. Now, an interesting part about this level is you would think that after getting all of the keys, that would be it. You get the keys, you go through all the trials, blah, 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 and that's it. That's the whole level. You get rewarded with the Zapfish. Yay. But that's not the case. Instead, they give you squeegees at the end. And as we all know, the squeegees are very frustrating, and you have to use them for a lot of the final bits of the level. So it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite level in the game, to say the least, but I'll let it speak for itself. This boss is very unique, I'd say, in a very bad way. It's very hard to do this boss fast. I think that this boss is probably the hardest to do the speed strats on, simply because a very small mistake, using a really hard weapon can cost you a lot of time. And you'll see that actually in this PB. I miss like a couple of shots, and then it will punish me by missing cycles. So that's a little bit frustrating. It can lose a lot of time if you're not 100% focused on hitting those little flying guys. But overall, I think it's a really nicely designed boss. There's not really much randomness to it. It's mostly just making sure you do everything perfectly. Oh man, I wonder what weapon we're gonna get this time. I hope it's a good one. Oh god. No. No, 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 no. Why you give me the brush, dude? Oh, okay. The brush is not my favorite. Not my favorite weapon, to say the least. It's a very bad weapon. It's very, very, very hard to use. Incredibly hard to use. It eats ink like a Hummer guzzles gas. It has the movement of a 4-year-old pressing a button 40 times in a row. It doesn't have any accuracy. It has no range. It doesn't work well with sub weapons. You have to kill this sprinty guy for no reason. Like, this level is basically everything that they can think of that was bad and very difficult in the game, and then they just put it all into one. They put the worst weapon, they put the sprinty guys, they put squeegees, they put hardened octa guys with shields, they put not very helpful special weapons. It is not an easy level to do well. It is not easy in the slightest. But, you know, that's what we're here for. We have to find the ways to make hard levels not hard anymore. And that's part of the reason this game has had me hooked for so long. You know, it's really hard to give up a game which has so much potential for finding out ways to do things more efficiently and better. So that's all I have to say for this level. I'll enjoy watching this last section of squeegees. You know, actually, all in all, this level was executed in this PB fantastically. That was basically as good as I'll ever get that level. A 208 is insane. Unfortunately, I messed up the bomb throws getting there, but you know, that's yeah, I can look past that with how well I executed that level. Okay, and with the end of that level, there's only one more thing to explain. Actually, two more things. One is what we're doing here, and next is the final boss, which I'll get to later. So, we are going to unlock this level here and go back to World 1 to unlock the Level 2 Hero Shot. Now, you may be wondering why we didn't unlock the Level 2 Hero Shot way before, considering I was complaining about how slow the fire rate is. Well, unfortunately, you are required to have 2 Sardinium, which is the little sardine collectible thing that you can find in the boss fights and in every level, and you need 800 orbs, which, considering after we buy curling bombs, we do not get over 100 orbs or over 800 orbs until World 5, and World 5 doesn't even have any hero shot levels. So you may be wondering, why even get the hero shot whatsoever? Well, the reason we have to get the hero shot is for the final boss. Now, the final boss is very difficult to do with the level 1 hero shot, because it just doesn't do as much damage per second as the level 2 hero shot does. In fact, the level 2 hero shot does double the damage per second that the level 1 does. So it is absolutely faster to get the level 2 hero shot, even though it takes 25 seconds to travel back to World 1 and unlock the level 2 hero shot. That's another change from Splatoon 1, of course. In Splatoon 1, we can just unlock whatever weapon we wanted from a start menu, and it would take about 5 seconds. But in this game, you have to travel all the way back to World 1 and go to the podium, which takes about 25 seconds. But you'll see why it's very important that we have the level 2 hero shot in the final boss when I go and do that, which is coming up right after this level. A very good Octoling level, I should add. Alright, the moment we've all been waiting for. The time where you can say, I wonder how they changed the final boss in Splatoon 2 to make it so different than Splatoon 1. Well, you might be saying, whoa, that's Callie. What's Callie doing on the Octarian side? Why is she wearing those sunglasses? I wonder if it's the most telegraphed boss fight in all of video game history. Like, seriously, if you were playing through the game and you didn't think that Callie was the final boss, then you are just very, very unobservant. It was probably the most obvious twist ever. And what I was not expecting completely was that behind all of this was DJ Octavio in the exact same machine that he was in Splatoon 1. However, it is a very different boss fight than it was in Splatoon 1. Instead of having 5 different phases of knocking him backwards until he shoots a subwoofer missile kind of thing, he instead has 4 phases where he shoots fists at you, which you will then knock back at him, and it takes 8 fists per phase to get him out of his machine, and you can actually deal damage to him. Here's where this boss fight gets frustrating. The order at which he does his attacks is, drum roll please, It's random. It's random. It's RNG. It's awesome. It's so fantastic to have a final boss 1 hour and 30 minutes into the game that can vary by up to 45 seconds of RNG. Up to 45 seconds, maybe even more if it's really, really bad. I think someone's actually lost more than 45 seconds from this boss fight. But, you know, there's a couple of techs and, you know, strategies that you can do to deal more damage than is intended. But getting around the RNG is, as of now, impossible. So we pretty much just have to eat the time loss and pray that we get the correct attacks, because you have to wait for the attacks that you can hit the fists. If it's a spinning fist, it won't work. If it's a glowing fist, that will work. So that's what you have to wait for. It kind of sucks, but it's what we have to deal with. Anyway, disregarding that, I can actually talk about some of the techniques that we can use in this boss fight. One of those you already saw. This is called the double fist, and the double fist is one of the best things that you can get in terms of attacking in this boss fight. He'll shoot both of his fists at the same time at you, and you have to carefully slow them down in such a way that you can hit both fists back at him, which is a lot harder than it sounds, but it is very important that you have the skill down to 100% consistency, because if you were to miss it, then you would be at the mercy of whatever next cycle would give you damage, as opposed to ending the phase earlier than if you were to only hit one fist in the double.